Hello everybody. Today I've got some replay footage for you here on how to play up close and personal with German secondary battleships. First up we're going to have the Pommern, captained for us today by Captain Anna of Clan IW, and he'll be with me in the Alsace. Now, fair warning, this is before the commander rework for this particular video, but it's still going to give us a very good example of how to approach and how to best utilize your secondaries. Now it's going to be a while before Captain gets up close and personal and into the action, so we're going to go ahead and just skip to it. Alright, nice. Here we are. So what you basically missed in the upshot is him finding a proper approach to get into the action without getting loaded up with AG along the way and preserve his hit points. And here what you see him doing is just waiting for the right time to approach. When he knows where the destroyers are, when he knows that he has a good approach without having more than two ships shooting at him where he can control the threats. Also, if you'll notice over there near the 9-10 line, I am in the Alsace and I'm pushing along the flank. What this is doing is this is causing everybody down there to have a small stress nugget and want to turn and have to angle against me. Also, it diverts a lot of their fire. It's important to note on this that Captain didn't just go rushing into this straight off the bat. He waited until a time when fewer ships could return fire at him. You don't want 5 or 6 ships shooting back at you. So you can see here he's really trying to focus a lot of his firepower on the things that are the biggest threat to the team as a whole. First and foremost would be the radars, and then afterwards have the destroyers. German ships are a lot of things, and they're fairly tanky, but one thing that they have a lot of is freeboard. They have a lot of empty deck space, and that likes to catch things like high explosive shells. That's why you hear a lot of people talking about German battleships being so flammable, when really they have the same chance of being caught on fire as any other ship of the same tier, as far as battleships go. But the fact that there's so much freeboard means that there's so much room for those shells to land on. It's really hard to miss. And you can see that even at these ranges, he's struggling to get reliable hits on the target because of the horrible accuracy of these guns. They're just not reliable. They're not consistent. They're best described as a shotgun. Really, where these guns come best is below 10 kilometers. Once you're within that range, you're much more lethal. Now, if you look over on the 10 line, you'll notice I'm about in place. So Captain's going to start taking the initiative and pushing into them. That way we can keep them caught in this 90-degree crossfire. They've got most of their attention focused on me at this point, and I'm really making it angled and hard, and I kind of hump that map border just a little bit, just to increase my chances of survival here and to reduce the amount of damage I'm taking. But Captain's going to take this time and push up and really stick it to them. He wants to get those secondaries as close as possible so they just flat out can't miss. And a big shout out needs to go out to the Gneisenau and the Vauquelin. Those guys really try hard and they play their utmost best in this match. Really surprised at how well they contributed. Despite being 2 tiers lower, they really helped carry the day on this one. They're starting to now think, how am I going to get out of this situation? I'm stuck behind this island. I got multiple battleships bearing down on us here. A couple of them have torpedoes, so they're starting to run, and this poor Nagato is the first one to go, and well, you can just see what's happening. He's getting torn apart by just the secondaries alone on this battleship. And just to highlight how ironic these guns are, when the Nagato only has 2k hit points left and is an assured death, he finally gets a citadel. The ship really is impressive, the Pommern. I mean, just look at the firing angles on the torpedoes themselves, and they're fairly fast to reload. I mean, this is definitely a ship to contend with when it comes to brawling, and to be feared, much like, in a way, the Gneisenau is. It's basically a tier 9 version of the Gneisenau. It's just a little bit better in every way. So you can see him using his torpedoes to figure out where those two ships are headed. And also he's trying to utilize that island to minimize the dangers to him. Alright, with the destroyer taken care of, it's time to work on the Alaska and the Georgia to secure the flank, because they're pushing up the west end quite fast. You see him checking their movements with his torpedoes. Gives you a really good indication as to what they're doing. He's trying to bring all the turrets around, take care of the Alaska first and foremost, because it's showing broadside. Now, he's got turtleback. That doesn't mean he's going to get away scot-free. He did take a pummeling there, but he'll be able to heal from it. With the Georgia taken care of, we decide that he's going to push forward, take care of the Leon, and take the Cap. And I was going to push back north and handle the Georgia and the Gneisenau. Now the Leon, it may only be a tier 7 ship, and it only has 340mm guns, but it's got 16 of them, and it actually has fairly impressive maneuverability. So anytime you're fighting one, you always need to handle it with respect and just assume that somebody who knows how to utilize that ship is sailing it. Because if you get caught by somebody like that and you're not ready for it, they can end you very quickly. At these ranges, German battleships have a significant advantage over French battleships, because French battleships are so poorly armored on the nose and on the deck that German secondaries can easily penetrate through them. On top of that, the Pommern, more specifically, has torpedoes, so it is very advantageous to stay fairly nose in and close the distance to within torpedo range here. So while battling the Leon, we realized that the Gneisenau that we thought was going with the Georgia suddenly appears right in front of him. You can see just how much damage that Leon managed to stack up on Captain in a relatively short amount of time for being such a small ship, such a low tier ship. It really is quite an impressive battleship, and I may make a video on that particular one later on. For now, Captain's got to deal with a full health Gneisenau. Now the Gneisenau is considered tier for tier one of the best battleships in the game. Anytime you're doing tier 7 ranked, oftentimes you will find the Gneisenau being utilized. It's got torpedoes, it's got excellent armor, it may only have 6 guns, but ultimately all around it's a good ship. So Captain popped his hydroacoustic search because he's waiting for torpedoes to come from the Gneisenau. He's trying to stay in front of him, all while sending his own torpedoes back, because at this point that's about the best chance he has of winning this engagement. And for some reason, the Gneisenau, he just doesn't send his torpedoes. So a big thing to know is all of the capabilities of your ship. Not just most of them. Don't write certain things off as just being totally useless. You never know when you're going to have that niche moment to utilize your torpedoes. Now, does that mean in a Gneisenau you need to sail forward like your massive torpedo boat? No. But know when you could use them. This Gneisenau could have just sunk Captain Anna right there by utilizing his torpedoes. But he's clearly one of those players that prefers to play at a range that's significant enough that he doesn't use his torpedoes, and because of that, he's going to suffer. That's about all that happened significantly in this match. We end up winning here. That Georgia ends up killing me due to the fact that that Alaska that you see up there camped clear up at B9, really sat there the whole match, and even at the very end never came out. But inevitably we kill him and win the match. Pretty impressive game by Captain Anna, 212,000 damage. High caliber, Kraken Unleashed, Dreadnought, Confederate, and 472 secondary hits. That's amazing. But what about some high tier German gameplay that's after the Commander rework? Well, let's take a look at the Großer Kurfürst. Once again, you're going to see me fast forward through this, but I want you to watch the approach I take on this. And I know you're thinking, oh, well, gee, this is pretty standard, but I want you to pay attention to where I keep the islands. I try to keep the islands between me and the enemy as much as possible until I'm within a decent enough range where I could possibly hit something, either with my secondaries or my main battery, not 19 kilometers out. And in this video, I'm actually running the legendary module. But I'll talk more about that later on. So I feel pretty confident pushing up. I got a destroyer up here with me on either cap side, and I've got a Riga, though the Riga's been turned away temporarily. But I have enough support to make sure that I don't have to worry about getting rushed by a destroyer without expecting it. The Großer Kurfürst does have a 6-kilometer hydro, but it turns so sluggishly that you always want to have a safety net there, if possible, unless you know exactly where the person is. Now this booster's showing an awful lot of broadside here, and I know he's far away, but sailing in a fairly straight line, straight broadside, predictable results. Could have been better, but once again, German battleships, terrible accuracy at a range. It's time for me to get rid of this AP and load HE and go chase down the small, and he just killed our Akazuki, but at least I know where he is. So I'm figuring if I come around this corner with this plane spotting me, he'll turn around and he'll come right out in front of that island, right in front of me, and try and torpedo me. But I have hydroacoustic search, so I'm aware that he's going to do this, and I'm prepared, so I'll be able to get out of there no problem. So because the only ship in front of me is a small and into this wide open gap, this is going to allow me to shoot straight into the enemy lines, directly into them. This is the strength of the German battleship line. Now that I have an opening, it's time to exploit that. That's where the ship becomes most effective. And there you have him. At this range, there's very little he can do. I've got my secondaries opening up on him, and I've got high explosive. It's just going to tear his ship all apart. 3 fires, a bunch of incapacitations, just no hope. Of course, he's still going to try and drop torpedoes on me, but I have a way of blocking those with this island here. And with him neutralized, that really has split the enemy team in two. We now control the middle. I've managed to successfully bully them out of the way. So I'm going to try and go hunt down this Musashi and see what I can do to help this flank over here. So a few moments later I cap, and I'm still using these islands here to kind of shield my advance as I try and close the distance between me and their ships. Now, obviously, you're going to have things like Kansas's and Vermont's that are going to sit way out in the middle of the nowhere, but you're just going to have to do your best with them. So the Musashi, the Yamato, and the Shikishima all have the same unique weakness. And that is that their citadel has kind of an octagon shape to it. So there's actually a flat portion of it when it's angled like that you can shoot and get reliable citadels. It's a humongous weakness. And anytime you can exploit that, it's some of the easiest citadels in the game. At this range, yes, he has a 60mm deck, but his nose is 32, and so is his stern. Plus, he has a fair amount of superstructure, so my secondaries are just going to chew into him. Plus, I'm able to punish his citadel at this angle. And so I feel fairly comfortable and safe here. Yeah, he's going to be able to do some decent damage to me. He's got 460mm guns after all. But he won't be able to citadel me at all, because I have a significant icebreaker that extends all the way to the front of the ship. This is what this ship really specializes in. This is what it does better than any other ship, is this is just a ginormous bully. It's great at getting in there and just hammering on other battleships. Really, if you're within that 12.5 kilometer number of the gross occur first, you're not having a good day. I know he's got really dangerous guns, but honestly, at this range, I know that he doesn't have a chance, especially with that low health. And there's no way I'm letting a tier 8 CV take my kill. So I'm going out there after it. A pretty big weakness and in ships that you need to watch out for in particular are American battleships. Because of how lofty their shells are, they tend to get plunge and fire on you, meaning the shells come through the deck usually. And they tend to do a tremendous amount of damage. Even this Kansas, which is 2 tiers lower than me, is going to be able to do just a ridiculous amount. I'm fairly angled, not perfectly, I could definitely be better. But you can see he's just managing to pummel me with those shells. Plus I've got a Montana all the way down in the corner over there, lobbing shells over the hill and into me. So I'm taking a tremendous amount of damage from these guys. Always respect the American battleships in a German. Now the Montana has amazing firing angles for its rear turrets, so it's pretty easy for it to be able to bring those rear turrets around and fire them and then get back angled enough to where you can't penetrate them. And at this point we've managed to kill enough of their ships and displace the rest enough from the caps that we've assured a victory. Take note of the pathing I took in order to approach the enemy on this one, because I didn't just charge straight up the middle with them shooting at me starting 18 kilometers away. That's a real good way to get killed. You want to utilize cover in the form of violence. Yeah, the enemy's going to know where you are, but at least they won't be able to hit you directly. You can also minimize the amount of people who are able to shoot at you at any given time. This is going to help you and be successful in the long run. Being able to successfully push forward in a German battleship can drastically alter the results of the game. So it's a good idea to understand how to successfully do that. Let's take a look at some post-battle results. 185,000 damage, 2 kills, close quarters expert. You know, could be better, but ultimately that gameplay helped us secure the win. Finished top XP overall. Alright, let's take a closer look at the gross curve first. Now, up front, it seems like this ship is really heavily armored, and for the most part it is. Like, if you're up close and personal, they're going to have a really hard time taking you down, provided you maintain proper angling. The ship does have the one glaring weakness, and that's the overall size. See all this empty space out here? This is freeboard, and at a range, this is excellent at catching shells. That's why you'll frequently find grosse Kurfers or other German ships for that matter, German battleships, at ranges of 15 kilometers, and you can just seem to pepper them for 10 to 15k reliably. That's all this freeboard, it just catches everything. Now, you do have a turtle back, and the turtle back does protect you for the most part against citadel damage because it's got 150 millimeter plating down there. Uh, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to take a tremendous amount of damage just from AP. Just the sheer numbers alone will take you down quite rapidly. You'll take 15% of your hit points every volley or more. Alright, let's take a look at my captain skills here. Now, there's a lot of wiggle room to play with here. However, this is what I've had the most success with. So for our first tier skills, I went with preventative maintenance just to reduce my turrets getting knocked out. You could also go with gun feeder. That's an excellent choice also. I feel that being able to switch between rounds is amazing in a battleship, especially with the amount of destroyers out since the captain rework. This is a very important skill. However, for this particular run, I went with preventative maintenance. Second tier, it's, pretty point blank. It's a priority target. It's just so powerful. I mean, how many people are looking at you. You can tell if a destroyer is going to torpedo you. This is just for the tier 2 skills for German battleships. This is the best one you can possibly get in my opinion. On to tier 3. I've got Adrenaline Rush and long range secondary batteries. This is a gimme. This should be your first tier 3 pick right here. Extends the range out. Since the rework, these things get out to 12.5 kilometers, so this is actually really useful now. For your next pick, you German battleships, you have to have improved secondary battery. You have to. They're just too inaccurate, otherwise you're never going to get hits. It's just going to suck for you. Also, everybody overlooks Concealment Expert, but on this ship, if you don't have Concealment Expert, you're going to be seen from 16 kilometers away. You need Concealment Expert, otherwise you're just going to get killed before you even manage to make your approach. Also, fire prevention. Once again, a lot of freeboard, a lot of room to catch HE shells. You will burn to death in no time at all. So fire prevention expert is amazing and is a mandatory on this ship. There are some other things you could possibly consider. You can consider close quarters combat, which does give you additional time. However, personally, I like to choose a little bit more survivability and utility, which these two are going to give me. However, if I had to drop one to pick up close quarters combat, I would probably drop Concealment Expert. But overall, neither that nor Deadeye. Deadeye, yeah, I know. It's game breaking. It's amazing. It's blah, 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 blah. Use it on something else other than... If you're playing a German battleship, there's only one thing that these things are good at, and that's close quarters battle. Everything else you may as well play a different ship. Period. Alright, let's take a look at some modules now. Now, to start off with, yes, you do have two options as far as your turrets go. You can get the 420s, however, I prefer the faster reload. There's not a tremendous amount of difference between these two, plus these have a little bit lower shell velocity, so I stick with the 406s. But ultimately, it's your opinion is what's going to matter most on that. For slot 1, I went with Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1. Keeps all your secondaries and AA from getting knocked out. Obviously, you don't want to be playing a secondary ship with no secondary batteries because they've been knocked out before you even get to the fight. You have Damage Control Systems Mod 1. This is another gimme on pretty much any battleship out there. Just if you don't know how the risk of fire, the fire chance actually works, it's not what's listed on the gun. That is a factor involved in the calculation, but you should go to the Wargaming Wiki, and it's got a very clear description there of how that works out. It depends on your tier, and it depends on modules and the guns. There's a lot that goes into that, but this has a humongous impact in it. Now, let's go to slot 3 over here, secondary battery mod 1. This is a mandatory on any secondary ship. That additional 20% firing range and 20% reduction in dispersion of secondary shells is huge. You don't have a secondary ship without this. You won't hit anything, you'll have to get too close, you need to have that. Now for slot 4, we're going to go with steering gears mod 1 because in the gross curve first, you have over a kilometer turn radius, and even with that I have a 15.5 second rudder shift time. So this is a huge upgrade. Now, slot 5, once again, there's only one option really. Concealment Systems Mod 1. Not only do you get the 10% reduction in detection radius, but you also get a 5% dispersion to enemy shells fired at your ship. And on to slot 6. Yes, you can use the legendary mod if you want. It gives you a little bit additional reload time, but it takes 8% of your range right off the top. On top of that, you also lose 5% battery reload time. Why 5%? Because if you look down here at auxiliary armaments, it gives you 20% instead of 15%. Also, you get a bunch more AA, continuous and explosions. Plus you get 2 more flak clouds. So I would have to recommend you take auxiliary armaments over anything else. As far as consumables go, there's only one option here, and you can go spotting aircraft or fighter, and fighter right now is pretty worthless considering the fighters don't even engage until after you've already been attacked, so I go with spotting aircraft. It also helps with torpedoes and whatnot. So, there are your modules. If you enjoyed the video, then hit the like and subscribe buttons below. It helps the channel a lot. Let me know in the comments section what walkthroughs and videos you want to see most. I'll see you all in the game.